I've been busy with client work and haven't been sharing much of my outside photography. I haven't been sharing the client work either, and that's not necessarily intentional. I just hadn't been getting around to it. So here's a little bit that I've shot recently. I was in New York City shooting some nice luxury apartments in a new building for a Nuclean client of mine that I shoot a lot of real estate, higher end like real estate photography for. And generally I'm getting into these places before they're completely finished. You can see there's still a little bit of debris down there from the construction. As you look at it outside the window, you can see there's a little smashed up bottle and some wire or something. But the apartment was nice and clean, but we're not going to focus on that. I was there shooting until the sun went down, and this light on the balcony really caught my eye. And as one of the more like artistic, like night-looking images, and I kind of like that it's a little dusty and unfinished. In the years that I've been shooting the like apartments for this real estate company, this is always the stuff that jumped out at me the most, is the scene that's like a little rough on the edges that, like, of course they're not going to use for a real estate listing photo, but is something that I think might be pretty to view years down the line. I do have like a collection of images that I need to like put these all together, but I thought it might be neat to have a collection of what apartments kind of looked like over the years in this area, because there's a big spread. Like, this is brand new and was just built, and I've seen lots of old ones that are like kind of in disrepair. And like, again, I took photos of those that aren't going to work for renting the apartment, but would be really neat as a time capsule or a view for an outsider of what New York City looked like at that time, and probably still does, because some of these places don't get fixed up quite so frequently. Anyway, let's talk about this image. There's something that I really liked about the light and the layers, and I actually went out and flipped one of the sconces on because only one of them was on, so I turned both of them on for this. And this is a view out onto the balcony of this particular unit. And this doesn't really show in any of the other photos I took of the apartment, so maybe there is some value to it, to the agents. But anyway, I could have included it under the assumption that it wouldn't get used, and that if it had, that would be a happy surprise. But generally, when I'm shooting for them, I would brighten up the interior some more and not give just like a totally natural look like this. Although, like, I am very fond of it. Maybe I'm stopping myself there, and I should just go ahead and deliver it, because, you know, these people have seen my work for a decade, and maybe it's not, maybe it hasn't been that long, many years, and maybe they might hop on board with some of the more artistic stuff that I like to shoot. I thought about keeping this video short so that I could put it up on TikTok, but now I've probably talked for several minutes, and that's probably not going to happen. And I could, instead of right now, I'm just using Lightroom to like preview the images, but I could just put it up in Premiere, but I wanted to keep the flow simple so that I actually got it done. It's been a long time since I've shot and released anything, and I want to actually release this, so I'm making my attempt here. What else to say about it? It's calm and quiet, and it's something that I like. That, like, obviously you're in the bustling city, right? But the light level is very relaxed. And seeing the condensers for the air conditioners there on the side of the building kind of reminds me of a lot of the like Tokyo photography that I like to watch. I just watched a guy who I'll link here on the video somehow. I should say his name. And darn if I didn't want to disrupt the flow here, but let me pull that up. Here's something I was watching that is definitely not that. Tokyo at Night by Teo Crawford. So go give that a watch, because that particular video informed the vibe that I'm giving right now, which is the calm, soothing, close to the microphone podcast voice. I really liked that energy, and before I had watched his video, I had had too much coffee, and I was really wired, and I watched it, and it calmed me way down, and I really enjoyed that. And that's the funny thing about the style of imagery that I really love is that I do love this really like calm, quiet, relaxed photo that you can like kind of get lost in. But usually when I'm recording my like YouTube videos, it's after like an espresso or a cup of coffee, and I talk way too fast and with way too much energy, and I'm playing like my dance music, and those are different vibes, And I'm still really working on what I want to present to the world with my work that is more on the art side and less on my like client work side. Because the client work for this shoot is like very bright, and this is very much not that. But this is the kind of stuff that I love, and if somebody were paying me to just shoot this stuff, like that'd be a dream. And I should try to find that fusion more, right? Like I should try to work my client work more towards the art that is the thing that I love, and present more of this. And I have a piece of advice here for a fellow photographers that is a piece of advice that I'm giving myself too, which is like, be in the work that you present to the world, be really true to who you are and the work that really speaks to you. Because it's really easy for me to look at this and be like, nobody wants to see this. Like, nobody's ever going to use this photo. But that doesn't mean that there's not beauty in it. It doesn't mean that there isn't something to like. And like, I could see somebody there was one photo that I posted on Reddit a while back that somebody just like poo-pooed it, and it was just looks like a snapshot to me. But I liked it because it like felt like something to me. And yeah, 10 years from now, I'll look back at it and think that it's trash too. But at the moment, there is something that made me want to take that photo, and that's important to dig into. It's like, something drew you to this, something made you want to take this. And sometimes it turns out great, and sometimes it doesn't. And like, both the great photo and the not so great photo have a value in your journey as a photographer. And now that I've talked for so long, I kind of regret I was going to film myself. I was going to set a camera up in here. But I am talking with a microphone right in front of my face, so it might not be that good for view. But instead of just this one photo being on the screen for this whole time that I was talking, having a face to cut away to probably would have been good. Maybe maybe I shot some video that I can cut away to for some of it. Anyway, you don't need to know the nuts and the bolts, because again, I was trying to keep this short. I really love the light on the sconces. This is my favorite time of day. Like the just around sunset, just after sunset, blue hour. Like, I don't know what it is, but I grew up loving artificial light. As a kid, I was obsessed with flashlights and sources of artificial light, light bulbs, stuff like that. And to this day, it is still the thing that I am most drawn to. I like photos at night, and I like photos at twilight, because I like to see our world lit by us, and because I think there's beauty and magic in that, and in the light that we have added to our environment. And sometimes it's gaudy, and sometimes it's too much, but sometimes it is wonderful. And the level of light that we've got here, just this little bit of light from inside spilling out onto the concrete, the light from the sconces down here, this little bit right up here. There's this one apartment that's lit up back here. It might have been nice if some of these other apartments were lit up, but I'm not going to go in and Photoshop those. And little bits of light from the view of the city deeper away over here. And the little bit of light, you can see that this sconce is causing this light to fall right here, just past this shadow. And that it's dim in here, because like, this is what I would do. If I lived here, chances are that I would have a chair over here with a view similar to this, like in this corner where you can kind of see the tripod in the reflection right here, and the camera is right there. And so if I had a chair near this window that I just got to sit here and look at what it was like in the evening, I would love that. And I also like the reflection of the sky in the window here. And there's a lot that I really enjoy about this. I should print this out and see how I like it as a print. I'll start with a little small selfie print and see what that's like. That's probably enough to say about this. I liked it a lot more than I expected. Oh, and this is also a JPEG straight out of camera. The only thing that I did to it was click an auto perspective adjustment in Lightroom, which I almost didn't do, but because it's an architecture photo, I did want to get those lines straight, and it did look a little bit better with them straightened out. But that's another thing is like, I spend so much time editing my client work in Lightroom and Photoshop, just like hours and hours and hours and hours each day, that I never get around to editing my personal work. And that's sad because then I never present it. And so when I looked at this and compared I compared the digital negative to the JPEG straight out of camera, and I was like, JPEG's good enough. We're just going with this. And that's like, I watch a lot of film shooters now on YouTube, and I really am getting into the like, I probably am not going to start picking up film, but I do want to do more of just like setting some settings on the camera and shooting a JPEG and just being like, that's what it is. It's done. And I think that a lot of digital photographers kind of feel the same now. I think that there was kind of an era of all the things that we can do with Lightroom and Photoshop and the editing tools. And some people, myself included, are really burned out on that and just want to like take a photo and be like, it's done. Like, I did the most important part, which is the capturing of the image. There was another video that I watched recently talking about just over editing in the pursuit of perfection. And he talked about how he would like export a photo to his phone and think something was wrong with it and go edit another version and export that and edit another version and export that. And then when he looked back at all of them, they almost looked identical. And just like, I just spent like an hour on something that I could have just exported like straight out of camera and it would have been fine. And he was like, most of the meat, like most of what's good about the photo is done when you take the shot. And I kind of agree with that. For a long time with architecture, it's not quite the case because you usually have to edit in like a window view and things like that. But I want to move towards a world where I do a lot less fiddling with the photos on the computer and a lot more focusing on getting the composition right, getting the lighting right. Like, the physical experience of using the camera is why I love photography. And I want to be doing more of that and less fiddling with the image in post, because I believe that shooting the volume and doing the practice of doing the actual photography in the field is what's going to make you a better photographer. Doing the fiddling in post makes you a better editor, so I guess there are arguments to be made for both. But where I want to move in my photography going forward is a lot more being happy with the shot that I got and moving on. So there's a good lesson. I could wrap it there, but I actually have a few more photos from this set to show you. So this is the only one like this that I shot at this building. I also shot a lot of really beautiful night shots, which again, I have my like quibbles with that I wish I had shot a little bit differently. Let's hop in there and I can show you one of those real quick. Rooftop, nighttime. There's a view of the city. This is pretty, but I'm not really happy with the colors. If I had shot this and it were film and this is exactly what I got, then maybe I would be happy with it. But knowing that it can be edited and knowing that it can be changed, I'm like pulled in different directions on what to do with it. And like, I kind of want something different for the color of the shadows down here, and there's some noise down here. But again, I was watching the film photographer and he was shooting these, like, it was Theo again, Teo. I have to ask him how to say his name. And they were wildly grainy. And he was just thrilled with them, and that's something that I need to come around on, is like, perfection is a myth, right? And like, something can be beautiful. Everything is beautiful in its imperfection. And so stop striving so hard to like push against the river, you got to go with the flow and enjoy it. And I am curious too, I do really want to see what this might look like on a different camera, because my camera is a bit older. But look at this. It's still great. Like it still produces a beautiful image. Maybe I'll do a little print of this one and see how I like that too. But I think there is something better to be had here, possibly. Anyway, enough of that one. Let's go back to our other set here, which is Where Even Were Those. So you can see, let's make this full screen so you're not distracted by my other stuff around here. What else I shot this day, which is quite the little collection of, here's a brighter, overexposed version of that, which is, that's not pretty at all. Like, that's awful. It's this quiet, darker shot that has the beauty to it. And let's move on to after I left the building, as I moved on to head home, I think it was. I was going to stay at a friend's house for the night. I saw this guy on the train with this bicycle that had been totally wrapped in this plastic stuff. I suspect professional, some sort of like bike delivery courier, like Uber Eats or something like that would be my guess, especially given that like messenger bag that he's got that's kind of deep in the shadow over here. But I loved the way the sunlight was coming in and lighting up the different parts of the bike. And you can see this is like out of focus, and because to get the light levels that we needed, f8, yeah, f1.8, yeah, so as shallow as it goes at 1/100th of a second. But I could have turned up the aperture and raised the ISO to get like a little more light here, so that I could have gotten more of it in focus. And I might have done that in another frame, actually, so I wanted to look through that real quick and see if that's what I did. But I do just, like, I really loved the way the light was hitting the bike. And he obviously does all this to, like, protect his bike, especially when you're putting one of these U-locks over the frame to lock the bike up to a rack. You can wear away the metal really quickly and easily. And so that is, I imagine, why he has the bike and the thing so wrapped up, is for longevity. And anyway, the light is really nice. And I believe this, too, can be a sort of time capsule for when and where I shot it, because this is the type of electric bicycle that we have right now, where this is just like obviously a hybrid of, like, this is like a regular bicycle that you strap a battery on and put a little motor in the wheel, as opposed to like some sort of electric motorcycle, that like we might have further in the future. Well, I mean, they already exist now, but anyway, these are common now, and maybe they won't be one day in the future. And it's interesting to think about the imagery in that way, as because I think I look at another photographer, Greg Girard, who I really love. I love his work. I don't know him personally to love him. But he shoots these beautiful photos, or did, in like the 70s of Hong Kong, and I think some in Japan and other things like that. And like looking back at them, especially like given the film stock that he shot them on, and this like totally different look that was like probably common back then, at least to some extent. But like looking back on it now is a wonder. And that maybe some of the images that we shoot today will have that sort of wonder and beauty 30, 40 years from now, and to not look at an image that you shoot now and dismiss it as like worthless because of how like regular it is, but to say like there's something beautiful about this, and there's something worth like loving and preserving. And it's easy to be like, well, that's just a snapshot that doesn't matter, but you give the life and the love to the image, and you get to say what is your art, and this type of lighting, this like that there's darkness with a little bit of like highlights, is really nice. And there's this soft light on the wood back here, and the way these things are all lit up, it all really speaks to me. And so that's that one. We can use our tools right here to see. Oh, I actually don't know if you can sort by f-stop. That might be a little bit of a silly notion, but I can flip through them quickly to see. I don't even know what button I just pressed. This is kind of messing with the flow, obviously, of the video, but maybe I cut this out and maybe I leave it yeah, so I did not, in fact, change the aperture. I don't love the high ISO performance on my camera, but going back to like being okay with some grain, like maybe I should get to love it. And I could have had more of this in focus, but it isn't. This is what I chose to shoot, and that's good. Shall we move on to the next photo? The next was a shot of the train facing the other direction. I don't remember which train I was on here. I think it was either the R or the N. Probably the N. I had changed trains at Barclays Center or something and was headed into Manhattan. You can see that it is aged, and it has this like old yellow lighting. The oldest, I guess, trains that are still in operation, as far as I know, are these that have like the yellow and orange plastic seats. I don't know how yellow they were when they were first made. Probably still some. Like, I doubt these were pure white at any point. Anyway, you can see the age on it, and it's nice that it's like still in operation, and there's something beautiful about that age. Anyway, I liked this guy in the middle there. Maybe something about his shirt, his hat sticks out among like the people wearing darker colors here. He just caught my eye, and I didn't think too much about it when I shot it. I tried not to get too much of this lady and her bag in the foreground. In fact, maybe the photo would be a little better if I had managed to like dive forward a little more to get her out of it, but I didn't, because I wasn't gonna like lean over her to take the photo. It is fine. No, maybe it would have been better, and maybe I should, there's a question of like how obnoxious do you get when you're taking your photo, and usually the objective is as the least obnoxious that you can be is the way to go. But I kind of wish now, looking at it, that I had leaned in a little bit more to get past her, because I do think I would like it a little better without her there. And I am pressing all these buttons like I don't know how to use this program. Here, we'll add a little vignette, and we'll make her darker there, and there we go. Now she's disappearing. And so this is kind of a different edit. So I could say, like, because I talked about how these are JPEGs straight out of camera. And I'm not like pushing and pulling the highlights and the exposure and stuff. Like, boop. In fact, that makes it worse, I think. But just darkening her in the foreground to make it, there we go. That's pretty good. So she disappears into the frame now, and we get to focus on our little guy riding the train a little bit more there. And there, so a decent improvement. Finally, last shot that we've got here was at a train station. I wonder, was this the same day? Because I thought that this looks like a stop on like the New Jersey Transit or something. Yes. Okay, so this shot was on Saturday, I think it was, and then I spent the night, and these were all the next day after I went back to the building and shot some more. So here's this image. This is from the New Jersey Transit train that I ride back to home. Usually has 2 levels, and I usually sit on the top level, and the windows are usually really dirty, like they've been scratched up, and sometimes you can barely see out of them. But I generally will look for a seat where I can see out of the windows and look for something to photograph. And you can see that haze here. And my original thinking is, I'll correct that in post. Like, I'll go in and do some like dehazing to get rid of that, mess that is on the window. But looking back at it, and again, looking at just the straight raw, and after having watched a lot of film photography, I kind of like that it's a little hazy, and I kind of don't want to mess with it. And, I was comparing this to the raw shot that has a different sort of like look and detail to it. So this is it raw, where the colors are a little more saturated, and there's a little more detail down here, and the, lens is corrected. And maybe it's nicer, but I kind of like this kind of dull look that this one has. And so that's why I decided I would stick with it, just straight out of camera as it is. And I shot several of these, which you might have just seen in the timeline. And I fiddled around with lowering it in the frame and adding a little bit more stuff to look up here. But I feel like that kind of pulls the eye a little bit too much away from this, and that the subject should just be this. And the question then is like, would this have been better if someone had been sitting on the bench? Probably. Like, it probably would jump out a little bit more. But I kind of like, again, the like quiet loneliness of it. And, you know, if I had gotten lucky and someone was on it, then I would have a different photo. But this is what I have. And I actually really love, now that I see the light on this arm back here is really pretty. And so just like a look at the material and craftsmanship of this bench, which, like, I don't know when these were made. You know, they've probably been here for quite some time. But they are beautiful, you know, and like a time will come that they're probably not here anymore, you know. And so again, going back to that time capsule idea, and you know, I could pick apart the composition, like, oh, do I need to have this like bee over here on the pillar, and like, would it be better to crop it out? Maybe photoshopping it out would make for some sort of improvement to the image that simplified it, but I don't feel like it really pulls away from the shot too much. But these are now the thoughts that run through my head as I talk about it and present it. And so what happens if we take that out? It's barely noticeable that I did that, but now that I took it out, maybe I'll leave it out. Let's take a look at side by side. Does it even make a difference, really? You be the judge. You're watching. You tell me if you feel like it's a better photo with or without it. I'm going to stick without. And so those were a couple of images that I shot recently while I was out and about. I'm probably going to add this to my in transit, what's the collection that I've been shooting for a long time. All of these photos when I've been on the subway and the commuter rail, now that my life involves riding it so much. And, you know, because I no longer live in the heart of New York City, but I live in, you know, the suburbs. And so I take the commuter rail in, and that's been a new like life experience for me over the past couple of years. And having been away from New York City for quite some time, and just like, you know, not riding trains or the subway or anything, because like, you know, when you live in the suburbs, you just have to drive a car for most of them. I'm really enjoying being back on the trains and the subway and stuff, and creating imagery of this like marvel of engineering. You know, obviously comparing it to Japan and Switzerland and other ostensibly better transit systems, but you know, New York subway system is renowned for being the highest ridership, busiest in the world, and it's quite the thing to see. You know, I probably have a different photo of this. In fact, I'm certain that I do, that we'll get into in another video, where I was standing on the platform at Penn Station, for the A train, where you're in the center platform with two platforms on the two train tracks on either side of you with their platforms beyond that. And there's can be a beautiful scene of the trains coming and going there, where it's kind of like frenetic, but it's just like, it's wild that it works at all. And it reminded me of like when I first came to the city as like a teenager, or like early 20s. You know, that like seeing the world around you with that childlike youth, and like as if you'd never seen it before, or just like stopping to appreciate the wonder of the things that have become mundane to you, because the wonder is still there. And for somebody, your photo is going to be the very first thing that they see of that, or maybe they see it like, and it reminds them of that wonder that they felt when they first experienced it. And if you can channel that, then you can touch something really, really deep and important for people, and that can make your imagery resonate. And, you know, it's easy to ignore the things that you feel are everyday, but there's something magical every day, and it's means something to someone, and you can help convey that meaning and be a part of it. I think that's a good place to wrap it up. So thanks for watching and checking out these images, and I'll see you next time.